16 is an open process report, appointments to the board of City Rail Link Limited. That will be discussed in public excluded. So I'll move. I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to second. I presume there's no questions or comments on this. We'll be having a fuller discussion later if need be. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Item number 17, likewise, the board appointments to the Manukau Beautification Charitable Trust in Comet, Auckland. Councillor Walker has moved. Seconder, Councillor Collins. So we'll be, if need be, discussing that in public excluded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Item number 18 is a summary of governing body information memoranda and briefings. There's usually no discussion on this. I'll ask somebody to move. Councillor Simpson, somebody to second. Councillor Collins. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Item number 19 is a summary of confidential decisions and related information. Again, no discussion on this item. I'll ask somebody to move. Councillor Casey and somebody to second. Councillor Simpson. No discussion or questions. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. We come now to item number 20, consideration of extraordinary business, and this relates to the shovel-ready projects funding and the need for an urgent answer from government on that. I think councillors have all received a letter that I sent with the mayors of Tauranga and Hamilton a week or two ago, and also a letter from Councillor Simpson to the Prime Minister on the same topic. But this is a chance for us all to actually get out there and say we really need to have this information. But I'll ask you to, if you've moved it, I'll second it. I'll ask you to speak to the motion, Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I think the fact that we have written to government and had no reply has been the catalyst for these recommendations. Look, colleagues, on the 30th of March, when the government initially requested submissions on their funding mechanisms around the shovel-ready, look, we responded quickly and met their challenging deadline. And I do want to note that in doing so, we had staff therefore required to work across the Easter holiday period to meet that time frame. There was 15 days, and of some of that was, of course, public holidays. Whilst we've heard that a shortlist went to ministers for consideration on the 22nd of May, we had no feedback about that. And we had to develop a draft emergency budget on the 28th of May that required us, or somehow requires us, to address a shortfall of revenue of $500 million. There's no doubt in my mind that government are aware that we are in a very challenging time financially. And the shovel-ready funding could actually make a huge difference to our budget. If the government chooses to contribute new funding, this will release our funding to be used elsewhere. Timing is everything. If we receive news of it before we agree to our emergency budget, we might find ourselves able to soften the blow for Aucklanders. And this could mean a number of things. Lower rates rise, maintaining important local services for our people, or increasing capital works program for transport and local boards. You've heard the Mayor's written to government, you've heard that I've written to the Prime Minister, and yet we are still in the dark, and this is our last opportunity to strongly request that the government make an announcement on their shovel-ready support before the 10th of July so that we can build that into our final decision-making on the emergency budget on Thursday, July 16. Ironically, it's the same period of time, 15 days from where we're asking now, into the 10th of July. We are 1/3 of the 5 million strong team that has responded to the crisis, and now we're all looking to recovery, and we respectfully ask the Crown to assist us. I hope that I can have all members' support for this, because I believe that as a collective group, we truly represent the needs of Auckland Tamaki Makaurau. Together we all can. He waka aka noa, and I urge you to support the two recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Simpson. I think most of us around the table are of a like mind on this. We need to know so we can, before we put our budget to bed. And the idea of shovel ready was we could move on these things as quickly as possible. And I guess if you've got $60 million in qualified bids chasing $3 billion, it's going to take time to sort it through. But we need to know now. The longer it goes, the less relevant it becomes for us being able to take that into account in our budget and to get on and do the damn stuff which is meant to be given urgency so that we can actually start to regenerate the economy and create jobs. I don't think we need to say much more than that. So I've got two people wanting to speak on this. Councillor Hills, first of all.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Phil. Megoff. I just want to support Councillor Simpson and thank her for this. And I think everyone heard me pretty strongly yesterday or whatever day it was. Yeah, I'm pretty gutted that we haven't heard anything much. We're going to be grateful for hopefully whatever it is. I'm assuming we will get allocated some of the funding. We'd hope so. But I think at this stage, when the budget is so dire, even under a 3.5, and not to know while we're discussing this and what it's no secret the constraints we're under, I think just some knowledge or even indication, high level of it, maybe an approximate amount or anything as soon as possible would be helpful. And then we would have a few more decisions. So I'm kind of at odds at why, this is about certainty. It's about providing certainty for us, but also private businesses who are waiting to keep people on that may or may not have these jobs in the pipeline. That's for our staff, the staff around who are working on these projects who might have to be made redundant. It's all sorts of different things that is uncertain, and it sort of seems strange to most people who go, well, what are government doing to help you guys out? The 20 billion that has gone to businesses is fantastic with the wage subsidy and other types of funding, but we are essentially one of the biggest businesses, I guess you could say, in the country, and we at this stage have no support to stop the bleeding. So yeah, I'm pretty frustrated that we don't have that information. I will just say the only thing I disagreed with Councillor Simpson is we probably shouldn't be saying things like it might help us have a lower rates rise, because I think the rest of New Zealand or people making these decisions wouldn't like to think they were providing us funding because we want to lower our rates rise. I know that's one piece of the puzzle, but I think that I think it's more about funding as much or as many projects as we possibly can and trying to keep services alive. So I don't know if that was just a side comment from Councillor Simpson, but I would not like people to think that we were asking for money so we could reduce our rates rise. So I think, the faster we know would be good. I would also like us to continue to push for some sort of revenue or for our services, so not just shovel ready money. If there was any way, the GST, we've said that a lot of times, but if there was any way we could get a grant or a loan we don't have to pay back or something to help us, not just with the capital projects, but for our operating budgets, keeping those jobs alive, arts and culture and environment and libraries and things like that, because they are going to have a massive effect on the Auckland economy too if we're going to have to cut that back. So thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll probably want to keep it focused on shovel ready and focused on the fact that we need to know for our budget, we need to know so we can get on to generate more jobs. And your other point is well made, where we won't put in the letter that it's and it won't be about lower rates, because the rest of the country would be saying, well, we're not going to subsidise you to lower your rates. Fair point. Councillor Newman, next speaker, and then Councillor Watson.
Yeah, I mean, when Councillor Simpson talked to me about this, I indicated I would support her. But I think it is a fair point to note that if I were government, I'd be saying I want to help, but I also don't want to be the solution to local government's problems so that local government can bank the benefit of shovel ready and make a concession elsewhere. That every aspect of the recovery from COVID-19 is difficult, and central government will have to address the legacy of the billions and billions of dollars that has been borrowed, and that will have to happen at some point. There will be more austerity budgets coming. We're just at the start of the process. But I think that in acknowledging that we do need some certainty around this, it is also important to reflect back on what were the criteria that the government set down initially, and how did we respond to that? We responded well, and we were very timely. I thought the quality of the submissions was also very good. But there was, in my view, quite unhelpful debate about matters and criteria that we wanted to apply, which I thought went well beyond the scope of what the government set down in the first place. Frankly, if you were to look at what the definition of shovel-ready was, you would say that, yeah, there's a lot of greenwash, but that actually wasn't the point. The point was had to be ready now, and had to generate jobs and immediate jobs, and hopefully have a multiplier. And so if I were government, I'd be looking at the screeds of applications that have been received, and I'd take time to think about that as well, because actually some of the bids I think were better than others. So I support Councillor Simpson. I think this is timely. It would be, and the other thing is too, frankly, if you're running up to an election, you want to have a whole lot of announcements to be timed with your re-election chances. So, politics does play a part here. But it is important that we have a timely response, but recognising that there are reasons why government wouldn't have responded to date, and that is part of the consideration. There's a lot of information here. A lot of the bids are good, but some of the bids not so good, and there is an election coming, so why would they want to give us certainty when the imperative for them is also to win votes?
Thank you very much. And finally, Councillor Watson.
Yeah, so thanks, Councillor Simpson, for bringing this up, but I assume this question has already been asked, and people know the answer. I mean, it's an obvious thing, not just Auckland Council, but any other council. So I'm sure this won't come as a startling revelation. It is very important to do it, though, to make it formally, but I assume there's very good reasons why the process is taking the time it is. I just would say that, and I don't think it'll be reflected in tone of a letter, Auckland Council is just one of very many priorities for the government, so I would be loath to be making any sort of implied or explicit sort of criticisms. We're doing very well out of the government, and I think that should be acknowledged. But as I said, I would have thought the answers to this are already known within this organisation. You would have hoped so.
Thank you. I think Councillor Simpson and I both pointed out this needs to be a constructive letter, because having an abusive letter wouldn't take us anywhere anyway. And acknowledging the point actually that Councillor Newman made, I would have thought the election imperative might have brought these things forward a bit rather than delayed them. So the delay won't be to try to frustrate us. It affects everybody across the country, Councillor Watson. You're quite right. But it will be around, I forget how many projects were put forward for consideration, but there were so many there that as soon as you accept that amount, $60 billion worth of bids, it's going to take time to work through. So that's probably where it's at, but it's really important to emphasise the key points of this letter, and thank you, Councillor Simpson, for raising it. So I'll put the motion that's in front of you on the screen there. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried, and unanimously, I think. Can I say unanimously? I think I can. Right, we now have a procedural motion to exclude the public because the appointments we're considering contain information about private individuals. I'll move that way. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Collins. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. So if we can